lifestyle designers. This is GovernYourSecretsOfLongevity.com. Something I see quite often, and there seems to be more of a resurgence of it as of late, is this sort of viral health meme. It's often an image of the doctor in question, and it's usually because it's been stuck on some natural health article. And this is where I get very skeptical and disappointed in the majority of the thinking that a lot of people in the natural health world seem to rely on it. It's a very limited surface, not very in-depth research type of stance that is often taken. And in this case, it's a Dr. Eisenberg, who was a psychologist but specialized in childhood psychology and developed the label that is known as ADHD and ADD. And he had a prolific career in that field, doing lots of research and helping amongst a team of people in coming up with this label. And so what seems to be said in the title of these articles that get shared around on Facebook more than anything else is something along the lines of inventor of the label ADHD's deathbed confession, where he says that it never actually existed. And if you do any amount of research in this, you know that that's not what his deathbed confession was. It was actually upon 7 months before he died. He was dying of prostate cancer, very long and slow, drawn out disease. He was actually saying that the overdiagnosis of ADD and ADHD is resulting in too many prescriptions for ADHD drugs, Adderall and things like that. He said nothing about it being a made-up disease, and quite frankly, anyone that's passing around these articles is not just disrespecting people that have legitimate health problems, mental health problems, but they're just showing their own ignorance around the topic. And B, this guy wasn't the only one that is responsible for researching and developing an awareness of this problem. It's like saying someone invented heart disease. It's not someone invented it. There's someone that came up with the diagnostic and ability to understand what's going on in the body through surgery and dissection to see that, there's plaque building up on the arteries or something. So yes, with mental health it's a little different because it's using something which generally isn't interpreting direct physiology, although increasingly with things like brain scans, it's apparent that people with mental illnesses have different types of brain scans. There's very much a physiological effect taking place, whether it's a nutritional deficiency or perhaps there's some toxic buildup of some heavy metal in the body can sometimes contribute to these things, and I'm meaning much more broader than just ADD and ADHD. And it's really important to note that these are legitimate issues that people face. There's nothing more difficult for people in the mental health world who are dealing with these things to be dismissed by people that look at them and say, oh, they look fine. I think they're just making that up. It's horrific for someone with depression or bipolar disorder to be told that by people around them when they're possibly potentially suicidal. You take someone with ADD and ADHD and you try and dismiss their behavior, their immense difficulty integrating into society that runs on a very strict, completely different perception of time and schedule and organization, and that is a big challenge for them. It can lead to a lot of frustration, and then that in and of itself can lead to depression in some cases. But that aside, we have to acknowledge that these things exist. There's definitely different therapies and lifestyle changes that can be made to accommodate these things and often improve it without the reliance on drugs. So by all means, we need to be critical of the introduction of drugs to be the sole interpreted way of dealing with these problems, because that's definitely just a band-aid approach, just like drugs for physiological problems. That's generally a band-aid approach unless it's an extreme and rare genetic disease where a drug is needed to keep the person alive. But 99% of the time when it's an ongoing issue, these things have a root cause that needs to be addressed. And I think that's what the alternative health and holistic health world sees and perhaps misinterprets. They see, the overprescription of certain mental illnesses, and they try to dismiss the label when what they have to do is accept the label, because that's what the medical model is actually very good at doing, is diagnostic work. And that's why I think everyone should have a doctor, and if they're experiencing mental health issues, you go to a psychologist and you get diagnosed, but generally you don't want to go with their prognosis, which is the way to deal with that, or what they're going to say that's going to cause for you in your life. I'm not saying don't listen to medical advice. You see that warning at the beginning of every video of mine. It's imperative that you do that, but we have to also acknowledge that in almost every single case of any illness, there's going to be lifestyle factors at the root of it. And if you want to know more about ADD and ADHD, as well as any type of mental illness and the dietary approach to that, you can check out this interview I did in the past on a radio station here in the city where I live, and I talk about the ideal nutritional approach to these types of issues. But it does also apply to depression and anxiety and these types of things that have to do with both a brain imbalance in terms of the chemical makeup of it, but also gut health and just what it is your body runs best on. And usually in the case of mental illness, it's a fat deficiency, that we need more fat and cholesterol in the diet to, overall just balance out the blood sugar levels to keep us more stable. When in the case of depression, to keep us happier. In the case of ADHD, keep us more focused and having a constant stream of energy that's not going to result in the up and down spikes that is detrimental to a greater degree to people that have this sort of predetermined condition set up in their physiology and perhaps even genetics. So I've got 3 links below just as references. Number 1 is just an example of the type of article I'm saying is really toxic to people's minds. It gives them the validation in their minds that, this person of a person I know, their child had ADD and ADHD and I think they're handling it wrong. So I'm going to dismiss that label and I'm going to feel better about myself because I think I'm right, and this article is validating that for me. So that's an example of things that aren't good for people to be reading. Article number 2 is just a Snopes breakdown of this, and it talks about it being partially true that was a deathbed confession. It was something he talked about, but because it was in German, it got poorly translated and misinterpreted in that way. And then link number 3 is actually giving the explanation of, there's brain scans that confirm that there's a physiological difference in the brains of people with ADD and ADHD. It also talks about the other way it's diagnosed and the physiological differences in people with this challenge. So let me know what you think about this video in the comments below. Like, favorite, and share the video if you feel so inclined. It's a huge help. And with that, I'll talk to you next time. Take care and embrace life without limits.